Great.
Okay.
Go ahead, Barry.
Yes, good evening. Welcome to the June meeting of the Parks and Waterfront Committee of Manhattan Community Board 8. I'm Barry Schneider, co-chair, and this is Tricia.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tricia Shimamura, the other half of this co-chair.
Good. We have a fairly light agenda, which I hope will mean we have a relatively speedy meeting. As you can see, the agenda is as follows: the presentation by the New York City Department of Parks of a plan for safety service replacement in kind at St. Catherine's Park. We'll be getting an update from Wes Hamilton of the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. We'll be discussing old business and new business. And we'll be given updates on all the projects we are familiar with. That having been said, I'd like to welcome Chris Crowley of the Department of Parks and Recreation. Chris, would you lead us through the presentation, please?
Chris, if you'll raise your hand, there you are. And Chris, are you going to be sharing your screen?
Now, hang on. Screen share.
Chris, are you planning to share your screen, or are you having problems with your video?
We'll give Chris another moment here. It doesn't.
Sure.
In the meantime, while we give Chris a minute, I just want to recognize Barry and just make sure you see here. I see Irma and Judy, who are part of our committee. I see Rita. I see Takako, which welcome. I'm super excited to have you here. And I see Barbara.
Marco is also here.
And oh, I'm sorry, Marco. Thank you so much to the board members and the members of the public who are here as well tonight.
And did you mention Judy Birdie, who's a public member of the Roosevelt Island?
Roosevelt Island. I'm so sorry, Judy. It's nice to see you as well. Ooh, excuse my baby in the background.
He's not a member of the committee. Oh,
He's the best member of the committee. I'm sorry.
What? He's the outspoken member of the committee.
Hopefully he'll be the only irate member of the committee. Chris, it looks like we have you on video again, which is good.
I need to unmute him again. I'm sorry. Try that again. You may have to push a button to confirm unmuting, Chris.
There we go.
And I have his PDF if he can't display it, but somebody will need to present it. That is not my job. Chris, try that. We can see you now.
But while the unmute sign is gone, the mute sign is gone, we still don't hear you, Chris.
Leslie Peoples, I see you raising your hand.
Yeah.
Hi, if Chris, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can go through it if Chris cannot. Do you have it there? Do you want to show it and I will?
I can put it up, or if Chris can hear you, he can put it up, but otherwise.
Well, I think you should.
Great, okay.
Put
Give
up the
me a couple.
presentation.
Oh, there he is, Chris.
Yes.
Okay.
No one can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you put?
Nope.
Will, I think that he had asked if you could put the presentation up.
Yeah, give me 1 second and I'm gonna get it up and then.
Yeah, excuse me all.
Apologies for the delay, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Oh, there we go. Here we go.
Great.
All right.
And Chris, can we try just one more time if you can just speak into your microphone to see if you. Yeah, we're not hearing anything that you're saying, Chris, unfortunately.
Chris, you can try calling with a phone. Next to your microphone, there's a button that says switch audio. You can try that. And just while we're paused, everybody is muted. I'm just gonna give a quick little intro to Zoom for anybody who hasn't joined one of our meetings before. Everybody is muted. You will not be able to unmute yourself if we get to the part of the meeting where, one second. If we get to the part of the meeting where it's time to take questions, you'll need to do so by raising your hand through the participants menu.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yes.
Hey.
Can you hear
I can
me?
hear you.
Yes.
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 Oh, great. Okay. So we're starting?
Yes. Let's.
Yes,
All
please.
right. Well, I'm Chris Crowley. I'm from Parks, and this is the St. Catharines Safety Surface Replacement Project. It's a $590,000 project by City Council member Ben Kalos. And it's a half-acre area that we will be reconstructing with new safety surface. Could we go to the next slide? The goal is to replace a deteriorated safety surface. We do need to install a new taut swing. The current swing does not meet code today, so we're going to replace that swing. And we think we're going to need to look, when we pull the safety surface up from underneath the swing, we got to look at the pavements there because they look like they're settling a little. We may have to do some pavement work there. We're also going to look at restoring or reconstructing the spray shower pavement. Same color, same pattern, if the funding's allowed. This is bringing us right up to the end of the funding, so we're going to try to add that in and see if we can get it added with when the bids come in. Next slide. You all know where the site is, Borough of Manhattan, Upper East Side, and it's at the intersection of 67th, 68th along First Avenue. We are working in the eastern portion of the park. You can see in this aerial, you see the ball fields and the courts on the western portion, but we are in the eastern portion that's kind of identified with the white box. Next slide. This is a flood hazard zone slide that we always put in to see if our parks are in 100 years or 50-year flood danger. This one is not. It's high enough up. You can see the light blue showing the high water. It goes into the island a little bit, but it's St. Catharines Park's very clear from any high water. Next slide. This is a use zone map. Typical Manhattan use zone with mixed residents, mixed institutions, and mixed commercial. Next slide. Of course, you know, St. Catharines, your community has one of the least parks per person in the city. There's not a lot of parks around. You do have Central Park. St. Catharines is kind of right in the center of your area. Next slide. This is just kind of setting you up for the next slides. It's showing the entire park, including the west side, which has the courts and ball fields. We're working on the eastern side, which is mostly the playground and the passive recreation with the tables for lunch and the little garden area. So that boxed in, the red dashed box in area is the area primarily that we're working in. Next slide. So this is that half, that red dotted area that we saw in the previous slide. This is that eastern half. And then within this eastern half, this red dotted line is showing the primary workspace that we're working in. It's the 2 play areas, the 5 to 12, and to the south side, we have the 2 to 5 play area, and then we have the spray shower in the middle. And then we know that the swings, I just mentioned that we need to look into the fall zone. The concrete is in bad shape in the spray shower area. We have a couple missing trees. We will be refilling the sandbox. The safety surface, of course, is the main objective of this project, so we'll replace that. Next slide. This is just, as you all know, this park is heavily treed, lots of big trees, nice shaded trees, huge stands of London plane trees. Next slide. Just a few photographs to go through, just showing you the safety surface and the play equipment. On the left, we have the 5 to 12-year-old play area looking north. On the right, the 5 to 12 play area looking west. Next slide. And this is the 2 to 5 play area with the sandbox looking north. And on the right, we have the 2 to 5 play area looking west. The sandbox is very low on sand. The sand is supposed to be coming up. If you look at the top surface, maybe 2 tiles down is about where the level of the sand is. When the sand is up to its normal.
Chris, we lost you. Chris, we cannot hear you. Chris, we cannot hear you at all right now.
And he is now muted, just so
Okay.
you.
Thank you. No, that's helpful.
No, we cannot hear you.
No.
No.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. Is Chris back?
Yes.
Well, temporarily he was.
Oh, okay. Because if he can't show up, I can complete this.
Is that Ricardo speaking?
Yes.
Hi, Ricardo. It's nice
Hi,
to
Trish.
hear you
Good to see you.
again. I think that Chris is still having problems, so if you don't mind taking over, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, as Chris left us off, we've seen that the sand area is very low, and we need about a foot to 1.5 feet of sand to make this sand area compliant and safe, because the sand should go up to almost the level of the safety surface. And then the swings to the right, they're 8-foot high swings. They're actually non-compliant as well with our current fall zone code, and we need to have those that swing lowered if it's going to fit in that space, which is not wide enough for an 8-foot high swing. So we have a 7-foot swing that we're considering for that. Next slide.
1 second.
Oh. Okay. And here's one of the empty tree pits that we're looking at filling up. I'm not sure if that tree pit is actually one of the ones we're going to fill up, but we're going to fill up a couple of the empty tree pits. Again, the slide on the left shows the swings that are non-compliant. With the fall zone is too small for the 8-foot high swings. And then on the right, the safety surface, you can see it's kind of coming apart. That's part of the problem that we have right now. It's forming these joints, which are about 1 to 2 inches in between. And so it no longer meets safety code. Next slide. So it's a very simple diagram of what we're proposing to do. We're going to replace the safety surface in both the 2 to 5 and the 5 to 12 play areas. with compliant safety surface, with new safety surface that meets the fall requirements. In one area where there's a spiral slide on the right, we're going to have to bump out the safety surface because that slide, the end of the slide is not long enough for current code. So there's going to be a little bump out in the safety surface on the right. And then in the middle is the spray area in the kind of green with the pattern. And we're just going to reproduce that in kind exactly as it is right now. It's not in good condition if there is sufficient funding. So the first priority is the safety surface and replacing that and replacing the swings with a compliant 7-foot-high swing. And then if there's funding left over sufficiently, we'll replace the paved area where the spray shower is in the same colored concrete. And then there's a couple of open tree pits in the middle that we're going to place 2 trees that match the existing trees. Next slide. So here this is actually what the 7-foot-high swings look like. I think we might even be able to fit in an extra bay. So I think it's currently 4 bays, and we're going to try to have the same number of bays that currently exists. Except when we have the ADA swing, which is the one you see on the left, that takes up a little more space horizontally. So it might not allow us to put in as many swings as there were, but we're going to try to put in as many swings as there were, given the fact that we need to put in 1 ADA swing. Next slide. These are just the colors of the concrete and the safety surface. You'll notice that the safety surface had a little bit of a pattern. It's a square that matches the pattern of the pavement all around the play area. That's something that Chris had done 20 years ago. He was the project manager for this and the landscape architect. And he came up with a very distinctive paving pattern with a lot of squares. So he wants to reproduce that in the safety surface as Well. And he could tell you more about this. Maybe if his sound comes back, he can. But it's to replicate the plaza, I think, of St. Catherine or the St. Catherine Church somewhere in Italy. I think that's where he got the pattern for the plaza that surrounds the play area. And so then we're also going to try to make the swing set, the 8-foot-high swings is currently just black, and we're actually thinking of using the play equipment colors that currently exist so that the swing set will match the play piece as well in color. So it'll be a little more matching. Next slide.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Please proceed, Chris.
Okay. I don't know what happened. So where is the slide here is the plant material. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so there's 2 trees missing. This is a very formal stand of trees, and we feel these are teeth missing. So we want to fill in these tree pits. The tree pits are there, and we'll fill them in with new trees. We are still debating a little bit on the tree species, but currently there's a stand. There are a stand of London plane trees. We're looking at maybe still using that, or maybe making a diverse culture of trees, so that if some blight comes along, they survive, and a couple trees will survive. Next slide. So this is the final slide. It's just showing the schematic again, and this is where we open it up for any questions.
Great.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Barry.
So right now, Judy Schneider, Rita Popper first and Judy Schneider. But if you want to take any members of the public,
Yeah.
I was describing earlier, to raise your hand, you need to access the participants menu at the bottom of your screen. You'll need to open that up and find the raise hand button to be able to be called on to ask a question or make a comment. And if you're on the phone, it is *9 to raise your hand. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, let's take members of the public if we have them, please, first. I don't see any.
Craig? I don't think that's Craig later, so
No.
would you like to? I'm gonna unmute Craig.
Hi, just two quick questions. How long is it going to take to replace the surface, and what's the cost of the new surface?
The total budget for the projects is $590,000. Construction costs runs around $477. And we're looking also at reconstructing the colored concrete that you see in the center where the spray shower is. The time frame for this project is that we will do the contract documents over the summer, put it out for advertisement over the fall, and by the end of the year, we should be receiving bids. Depending on the weather, since this isn't a major project, we could probably start it in winter. I don't see this project really going more than, typically our projects are 1 year. This can't be 1 year. We do 1 year because of planting seasons. We have to go through 2 planting seasons, but we haven't determined what the duration of the contract would be, but I'm saying we'll probably give it 3 months.
Okay, so just so I understand, of the 590,000, 470,000 approximately is labor costs
Cost of labor and materials, yes.
and materials. Okay, but specifically, what was the cost of the rubberized surface?
The rubberized surface alone?
Yeah.
I don't have that number independently in front of me. I just have the total budget.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
I want to chime in that I wouldn't say 3 months, even though Chris is probably right. It might take as little as 3 months, but we'll probably allow as much as 6 months because we might have to redo some of the asphalt underneath. And if in case we have to order a new swing set, that there might be some time for that as well.
So when we did this project in 2000, the area where the swing set was raised. We built that wall there and raised. I don't know if anyone remembers, but basically from the comfort station to the entrance gate at the corner of 67th and 1st was a continuous slope. So we made this sort of platform there with and we had to compact the soil under it. We need to, when we raise the safety surface, look at the condition of the asphalt. There might have been some sinking. We may have to tear it all up and repack the subgrade there. And so there is a little more construction than just laying down the safety surface. We need to order the swing and then of course all the concrete in the center. And then there's little areas that we're going to be redoing some of the pavement. For instance, as you enter the spray shower from the flagpole side, you see some hatching there. All that pavement has kind of lifted and shifted, and we're going to fix that. There's also a little patch area over by the comfort station. We're going to, I think it was Con Ed came in. We're going to be doing some asphalt block replacement there as well. So there's a lot of other little things in this contract. And then the planting has to go in, of course, April time or October time. So depending on when we get accepted bids and get the project started, we need to go through at least 1 planting season.
I think that it would be helpful, I'm sorry to just jump in, but it would be helpful we have a couple new folks here on the committee, and we have some just for any member of the public. When you say planting season, can you give just a general like month time frame for what you're looking for? It's, I think, a little obscure for folks who are not familiar.
How many months that the project will be finished?
No.
So when you say you have to go through 2 planting seasons, I think it would be helpful to say that like the planting seasons are mostly in the springtime, and that starting in say like September or October, you guys stop planting. So it would be, if you need to go through two seasons or whatever it is, we're really looking at if you're starting if you're putting it out in summer 2020. We go through winter 2020. We start this next planting season would be spring 2021. So you're anticipating that without giving an exact end date, that it would likely be summer 2021 that this would be the soonest opened up. Is that correct?
Yeah, since we're only doing 2 trees, I suspect we would put those in at the end of the project, which would be finishing up towards the time the buds come out. Now, that's when the planting season, we plant right before the buds come out, and then we plant right when all the leaves come off.
Okay.
Can I chime in about the timing, however, because this project, I think we're expecting the transmittal of final documents late summer ish. And then there's about at minimum a 9-month procurement period. So even if like we're done by September, we wouldn't really have a contractor and a bidder approved and ready to work until next June.
Okay.
So if we were lucky enough to start in June or thereabouts, we could finish, I think by, if we start in early summer, we could finish late fall. But then it's gone for a whole summer season, but yeah.
I will ask my questions at the end. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Barry.
No, I thought we should call on Judy Birdie now.
Great.
Okay, question. When you fence this area in to do the project, does that also mean that the western part of the park is going to be closed?
No, the western part of the park will remain open, and we're hoping to keep portions of the eastern park open as well.
Okay, because I know.
For instance, you could you'd be able to look, we're looking at coming in the 67th Street entrance and then coming up and going into the garden area and using the contractors will be coming in from the 68th Street side, and they'll be staging along the pavement just above the red dotted line.
Are they going to take any of the valuable street space, or are they going to be staging?
No, they wouldn't be staging in the street.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Rita Popper?
Actually, before we go,
Oh.
I see one member of the public who I don't think she knows how to raise her hand on the menu, but I see Lynn Cashman actually raising her hand. So I'm going to unmute her if that's all right with you, Barry.
Go ahead.
Lynn, you're going to have to select a button that confirms that you'll be unmuted. A button should pop up on your screen saying to confirm unmuting.
You're good, Lynn.
Now,
Yes.
I wanted to know about the comfort station. Are you doing any improvements there, changes for that?
No, this contract doesn't involve any architecture work or any improvements to the comfort station.
Thank you, Lynn. Good to see you. Okay. Rita?
Rita, unmuted. Rita, you'll have to confirm it on your screen. Rita, you'll have to select a button on your screen that confirms you're unmuted. There you go.
Okay. It's something that I thought about even when I was raising my own children, but now with this pandemic, what about the cleanliness of the sand pits? You know,
Right. So we do have M&O operations that clean the park regularly, and they clean out any debris in the sandbox. Sand is sand. We can't really, control just misuse of it. But it's an item in this park that the community feels very strong to keep. So we're going along with that, and we will do our best in keeping it clean.
I understand.
I remember, excuse me, remember the playgrounds are still closed by the state of New York. So until that situation changes, this is off limits to the public.
And if we can, Barry, I'm sorry, if we can just pause 1 second. It's 7 o'clock. So I just want to thank the Parks Department and all the other essential workers out there for just one moment, please, to thank everybody who's been keeping our parks safe and open as much as we can. So just thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All the medics and
Thank
all
you.
the nurses and doctors and everybody else.
We really do appreciate it. Rita, did you finish your question? Did that satisfy your?
It's not that people are abusing it. There are stray animals that come through at night. There are, we're in a pandemic. I thought about this 50 some odd years ago when my children were in the sandbox, whether it was clean then. And now I think we're just more conscious of it. And I was wondering if there's something, if there's a health hazard by having sandboxes. I know kids love it. I know parents love it, but I'm concerned. I'm done.
Well, we will bring that up with our maintenance and operation people. Well, it would be more out of the borough office, Commissioner Castro's office. I can talk to Steve Simon tomorrow, ask if there's any kind of.
I think Steve's on the call, actually.
Steve is there?
Yep. Yeah.
So.
And our manager, Wes Hamilton, should also be on the call. Wes, you want? Wes
here.
Is there?
So just like, I don't know if any policies have come up for such a thing, because we do have sandboxes throughout the city. She's bringing up a good point. I don't know if there's been any talk about sandboxes.
So, hi everyone, Wes Hamilton, District Manager. We do have several sandboxes in Eastern Manhattan. Maintenance can be an issue. We generally clean it like Chris was saying, we clean any obvious debris. I mean, but there is no disinfecting, or we don't want to use any chemicals in a child sandbox. So it's pretty much just take out whatever we observe in the sand. We do have like sand rakes. We try to clean like the top 6-inch layer of the sand, and then we replace and replenish the sand as we go. So also too, like that picture was taken, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, in February. And just before we closed our playgrounds, we added sand to the location. But from a maintenance standpoint, it's always an issue. The kids are taking the sand and they put it gets everywhere. And but we clean it as best we can, as we would any surface, with raking and removing the debris from the site. That's the best we can tell you for sandboxes. If anybody else has any questions, I'll try my best to address them.
If I could, Rita, I think that what you bring up is a good point, but what I'd like to do is finish.
Yeah, I will. I heard you.
About the
Did your hand up?
Park, and then go back to this. Just, I think what you're also asking is how we think of and view our playgrounds in light of COVID-19. And what really the future of our playgrounds kind of looks like, in part, like the sandboxes. But I think maybe it would be best to just continue on. There's a long list of, I see folks here who have other questions, but I want to come back to what you had said, because I think it's important, and it just kind of points towards these broader questions of what our playgrounds look like in this new world that we're in.
I've received a communication from a member of the St. Catherine's Park Association who has a comment. Judy Schneider, would you unmute her, Will, please?
Judy, you're unmuted. Judy.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I have a comment about the sand and the question. I must say, we're very fortunate at St. Catherine's Park to have Janice, our wonderful park worker, who works 5 days a week. And she cleans the sandbox every morning when she comes in. She rakes it and takes out all the stuff that's in there that doesn't belong, and does it a couple of more times during the day when the people are there. So generally, our sandbox, when it's in use, is in pretty good condition. So we're very fortunate to have her. And I just wanted to say that. And I wanted to thank Chris and Leslie and Ricardo and anyone else who's been working on this project, because these repairs are long overdue. Chris, I have a question for you. If you're able to put in the fourth bay of swings, what type of swing will that be? Or Leslie,
Chris,
or
if
anyone
Chris
else?
can't hear you, unfortunately.
If Chris
Well,
can't answer it, I would say we would try to match the swings that are there as best as possible, unless we hear otherwise.
But which, would it be buckets or would it be more flats? What
We would try to match the breakdown of flats to buckets that are there now, but we'd also want to include as, in addition to one of the bucket, in lieu of one of the buckets, the ADA swing.
Okay, well, that's fine. If you can put in the fourth set of swings, as you know, this is probably the most heavily used part of the park for the kids.
Okay. We'll
Thank you.
try it. I think we're going to do what we can to make sure that we can
Okay.
fit as many.
I just want to say thank you to all of you for
Oh,
the hard work on this.
thank you.
I came in late, so I hope we also acknowledged the fact that this project was made possible by an allocation from Councilmember Kalos.
Yes, it was, Steve. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It was on the title slide.
I know, but it doesn't hurt for me to say it again.
Who do you say made that donation to the funds?
Very grateful.
I'm sorry you didn't hear, Barry. It was Councilmember Kalos.
Oh, that's right. Thank you very much. Shall we move? How about Sahar, please?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. And this is such a fabulous meeting because I'm learning so much, and I'm so excited that this park is going to look even better than it is right now. Just wanted to know, and I saw the slide, and it's interesting that that was exactly my question. That aside from Councilmember Ben Kelos's money, what are the other sources that have been used for this project? Because I know that the amounts that were mentioned are more than what he has given.
No, all of the funding is from Kalos. He gave it to us in 2 or 3 installments, but all of it is from the council member.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Marco?
Marco, you'll have to confirm unmuting.
I did. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. First of all, I had to tell that always an improvement is in any park. It's a very smart idea. And the only problem what I to provide some money, but seeing around the park in the pictures that you show, my impression is it looks like a jail. Why not you can remove so much fencing around and make more a friendly park? So a park has to be open for everybody to run everywhere. With too many fences, project require more money, and that's I understand. Because we had to see the project, the largest, to enhance even better. But again, money is the key of all of that. And that's my comments. I think we can do much better in that park to make more user-friendly, more green, even though you provide a lot of green around. But this fence around this area, really think that you divide the park. And I think I found that you should start thinking to redesign the park, make more wide and open for everybody. Similar to the concept of the Central Park. That's the idea. The nature coming inside of the park. Thank you.
Marco, may I step in? I'd like to hear from the people of the parks, but I believe the fence are part of the rules regarding security for the people who walk by don't get hit in the head with a swing that goes higher or lower. But let the people from the parks talk about that. By the way, in my opinion, I've been going to this park since before it was called St. Catherine's Park, before it was redone by Chris Crowley in 20. That's a very open area. It's very heavily used. There's no sense of being in a confined area, but I'll let Chris or Robert or Roberto or someone else.
Just before you continue, I'm going to say any meeting is not a debate between the co-chairs and the rest of the community board. If you feel they have some strong feelings, you can step down and you can have a debate. And the other co-chair, they can make a comment.
Oh my God.
Your role is basically is to allow the debate continue on both sides. And that's basically my point of view. And if you are disagree, that's fine, because that is your point of view. But you have to step down for that to be a co-chair when you have a strong feelings about this topic. And that is basically I'm trying to raise this issue because I consider that whatever is your opinion, I respect. And whatever is my opinion, it has to be respect. And whoever makes a strong case, it makes more sense. Thank you.
If Chris is not able to talk to this, I can talk to this.
And can you hear me?
Can you, Chris, give it a try, Chris.
I'm talking now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Fences. The primary reason for fences, but we need.
I'm sorry, Chris, you're really breaking up.
Station changes. That's why we.
Let me pick up where Chris left off. I think Marco's comment would warm the heart of our commissioner, Mitchell Silver. He has agreed for a long time that the fencing around our parks is too high, too overbearing, too obtrusive, and he's wanted to lower them for quite some time. So even for a normal urban park like this, for a playground, we would, if it were new, we would not make a 7-foot high steel fence anymore. We would keep it down to 4 feet. And that's part of Commissioner Silver's Parks Without Borders. He wants to lower the fencing around the playground so they're not perceived as prison yards, but more as open to the public. So I think Marco's comment was very spot on with where we're going in our agency. And then with the swing sets, however, we have to cage in our swing sets because we don't want children running in and out arbitrarily and randomly, because those swings that are moving and they might get hit. So we do fence our swings, but now we're fencing them with lower fence. Now they're 4 foot now, but I think we can go down to 3 feet with our swing fences. But our perimeter fences, we can go down from 7 feet to 4 feet, and that's kind of one of the big changes that we've been doing since Commissioner Silver has taken his position.
Well, if I could just add that if we were redesigning the entire playground, we most likely, as Ricardo said, put in a lower perimeter fence, because that is consistent with the commissioner's plans for playgrounds these days. This particular project had a very limited scope, and really only we only began by looking at replacing the safety surface, which was not in good condition and was in dire need of it being replaced. And then we had the opportunity to add a couple of more things to the scope of work. But if in fact Marco, I think is again correct. If we were to redesign the entire playground, if we had that, if this were that type of project, we would end up with a much lower fence in many of the areas.
Thank you, Steve. I just want to mention and say that I think that generally, Marco, the idea that we should never be completely satisfied with design, and that we should always be pushing for more beautification, more work being done to make our parks just more special and lasting longer is the right mentality to take, and something that I take very seriously. We've been pushing for a redesign of a lot of other parks, and including parks like John Jay, which I feel like really do need a full redesign. Arguably, you can say that there's a lot that can be done in St. Catharines if we had a larger scope of, as Steve said, a larger funding for it. I think that we, every year when we do the budget priorities, both Barry and I try to go to those budget meetings for the community board to put this in and to advocate for additional funding for our parks. We can certainly talk about doing a bigger push this year too for the budget priorities to see if there can be more funding. I think it's fantastic that Councilmember Kalis was able to give the money that he was for this project here, but maybe just as a member and not as chair, I appreciate your comments about trying to push our parks forward. I think maybe we should move on. There's another member of the public who hasn't spoken yet, Meredith Bellew.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much. My name is Meredith Bellew. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of the East River Esplanade. I'm actually comment or have a question in regards to this particular playground, as it's one that I frequent with my kids. Seeing as that there are no bigger, what we call big kid swings at the park that's directly southeast of there, which is 24 Sycamores, I would definitely put in a plug to try to maximize the number of swings, if at all humanly possible, because I've been there many, many times when there is a long line of children waiting for those swings. And it, as a mom of a kid who has sensory issues and really relies on swings to help regulate him, swings are in short supply in the neighborhood. So, you know, to the extent that it's possible, I would certainly appreciate every effort to keep those swings or even expand upon them. And regarding the sandbox discussion was very interesting, because I actually despise sandboxes and avoid them at all costs. I find them to be disgusting. And try to keep my kids out. We often bring home what feels like half of the sandbox with us in handcuffs and pockets. You know, I wish there were more sprinklers and things rather than sand, but I often talk to the other moms that I hang out with, and very few admit to liking the sandbox. So just from a community perspective, I thought I would just throw that out there, because not everyone is a big fan. I try to keep my kids out of there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will do whatever we can within the code to squeeze as many swings in as possible. We're limited by code and by the space allowable.
I think Judy had another question or comment.
Well, only that Meredith, I don't know if you know 24 Sycamores is under construction. Maybe Steve, we're a little off topic, can tell us, do we know when the construction is going to resume on the upper level where the swings are?
Well, I don't believe the swings are affected by the construction.
No, but the whole upper level is closed during construction. Only the lower level is open.
All right, let me check my emails. I'll come back to you on this question. I think there's a chance it should be construction should be resuming any day now. But I'll get back to you in a few minutes, in a couple of minutes.
Great.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure that people understand that when Ricardo says that we're going to increase as many swings as possible, depending upon the code, he's talking about safety standards. I mean, we can only add, we can only add swings dependent upon the fall zone, how much space we have in, to prevent kids from hurting themselves in case they fall off of a swing.
Okay, seeing no other questions from a member of the public or the board, I'd like to thank the Parks Department for
Barry, I'm so sorry. Can I ask a question really quick? I didn't raise my hand.
Raise your hand. Got it. Next.
I'm going to be really quick. I just had a question about this is a weird question. I had a weird question about the slide going into the sandbox. I noticed it just seems that it's an interesting placement for that slide going into the sandbox. One, I don't know about I don't know enough about ADA standards for playgrounds, but I doubt that the slide going into the sandbox is ADA friendly. But two, for those people who are a little concerned about their kids going into the sandbox, I had wondered just about the placement of that slide going in that direction, going directly into the sandbox, and if there was any way to rearrange that so that they could go, kids can come off of it in, say, a like nice, beautiful new padded safety surface instead of the sandbox.
Can you hear me?
Question? Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so it's a possibility that we could have the slide removed and put on, if you look at the picture on the right, and there's some little steps going up, and then there's another platform next to it, maybe coming off that platform, facing, sliding toward the comfort station side. The main thing with the slide is we have to have enough room at the end for kids to go down and run out, right where the cursor is, right in there. Maybe the slide could go right there. So it's an interesting proposition and something I will look at.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I have a young baby who's just about learning the slides, but I, for instance, would know that I couldn't ride the slide with him and go down into the, I would not do that to land into the sandbox. But if I knew that he was landing on a safety surface, that would be a different story. If we can just rearrange that or look into that, that would be great. And there's one more question, Barry. I don't know if you want to take it from Karen.
Go ahead, please.
Karen, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I had a question about, actually it was about the dog parks. I know it's not under phase 1 or phase 2. Do you know when they're going to open the parks?
No, I'm sorry. We don't have a date yet. We're waiting to find out ourselves. So it's not clear to me that a final decision has been made about whether it will be included in phase 2 or not. And I just can't tell you when they're going to reopen.
Okay.
Let's be, Karen, before we go any further, but we weren't going to be bringing that issue up in our July meeting, but let's close out this discussion now and move the agenda. I want to thank the Department of Parks for this very comprehensive presentation. We look forward to you getting started and redoing the sandbox and that whole play area. Thank you very much. You have the support of Community Board A's Parks Committee. I see Judy Steiner has raised her hand physically. She didn't hit the little thing.
Judy.
Hi, Steve, while we're asking about reopening, has the Parks Department had any word from the governor about reopening playgrounds? Because technically St. Catherine's Park is a playground. The eastern part, do we have any idea if that's a yes or a no that it's going to reopen, when it's going to reopen?
No, it's basically in the same category as the dog runs. Although
which phase is that?
We don't know. I mean, we just don't know when. It's a day-to-day proposition, frankly. Each day we're getting different instructions from City Hall, and it's not just the governor. I mean, we basically, of course, take direction from City Hall. So we're waiting to find out again when things are going to be settled down and when we're going to be able to reopen various portions of our parks. But by the way, I just checked. I did not receive anything today about when work will resume at 24 Sycamores. I'll have to find out tomorrow and get back to you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify if you were hoping for a resolution from the community board office on this project.
It's not necessary. I mean, if you want to pass a resolution, I'm not going to tell you not to. But it's not essential because this is a project that's considered replacement in kind and is not going to be presented to the Public Design Commission. So it's not one of those projects where we absolutely would have to have you vote on a resolution.
Okay. Tricia, I would suggest we pass on a resolution at this time. They have the support of the community board members of the Parks Committee, and again, as Steve just said he doesn't need, they're not going before any design commission. So I think we should move on.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thank you.
Okay,
Next, yes.
Ricardo, are you okay with that?
That's fine. Yeah, we usually need it for the Public Design Commission. So
But
without the Public Design Commission, it's not required.
Yeah, we don't need it in this case. Okay, very good.
Very fine. Okay, we're going to move on to the updates from Wes Hamilton. Again, thank you each and then every one of you, Ricardo, Steve,
Ricardo,
and Chris
You're
Crowley,
welcome.
whose baby this is from the very, very beginning. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good
let us
evening,
hear.
everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, please.
All right, great. Well, there's not a lot of new updates, and some of the questions were already presented and answered. But basically, I'd like to say hello to everyone. I'm glad to see everyone. I hope everyone is healthy and safe and practicing good hygiene. And as far as the updates goes, I mean, currently our basketball courts, handball courts, dog runs, and playgrounds still remain closed until further notice. And as we discussed earlier, we do not have a date set. I can tell you that our maintenance crews are preparing and we're ready to open at a moment's notice when we do get word that we can open. So once we get permission to open from City Hall, it will happen quickly. There won't be very much delay, if any delay, and it'll open right up. And I think everybody will know it'll be on the news once that occurs. Right. So that's the update on that. So basically, you know, the new thing besides the pandemic that's been an issue has been some protesting. For Community Board 8, most of the protesting has been at Carl Schurz Park. However, we haven't really had a lot of issues as far as vandalism or damages. So that's good news. Everybody's been peaceful and no issues as far as the parks. So there has been some issues where PD has asked us to close certain areas or close the bathrooms. That's just out of an abundance of safety. But also at Carl Schurz, I checked on it today at Catbird Playground, the Capitol Construction Playground. Construction project's moving along very well, and they're out in full force there, and that's on schedule. So that's good news for there. And basically that's it that I have at this point in time because most of our parks are closed. So if there's any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. I failed to mention that currently all of our events are still also canceled through June 30th. So we don't have any events or any planning going on through the month of June. Okay. So with that said, is there any questions for me and M&O?
Tricia?
Yeah, I just want to give everybody else a second before I have a couple questions for you, Wes, but if nobody else has questions. So we've gotten obviously a lot of calls and emails from folks who are anxious for the playgrounds to open and asking also about pools or about, and so I think Barry, you sent me an article or some sort of notice today saying that the mayor was considering opening up our pools for a portion of the summer. Wes, do you have any information on that piece?
No, I'm sorry. No more further information. I mean, at this point in time, we did not hire any seasonal staff. The mayor asked us to make budget cuts. The pools are not planning on preparing to be open. However, you know, any of that could change with the mayor and funding. So, but currently at this point in time, I have no new information. The pools are not, we're not prepared to open the pools at this point in time.
And in terms of the, in terms of like this, like sprinklers, I don't think any of like the sprinkler systems are like the children's like, because I guess those are all in playgrounds, right?
Yes.
So there's no option for opening up those either.
Again, that's going to come down to, like Steve says, City Hall. And these things change regularly. We had our drinking fountains off, but their drinking fountains are now being turned on. So our drinking fountains are cutting on, and it's a pot, you know, it just depends on where we're at. Currently right now, there's no spray showers, there's no playgrounds open.
Yeah.
So I imagine they'll address that after the playground's open, and then they'll determine whether they feel like it's safe to have spray showers on. So
I guess I just have then two more questions for you. One is about John Jay. Just as I had this thought that I think when the governor was talking about doing some repairs to the MTA while ridership was down, I thought about doing small upgrades or things to just make sure our parks and playgrounds are ready to go while playgrounds were shut down. And obviously John Jay has its own sandbox there, and whether you like it or not, it's there. And I assume that whenever the playgrounds do open back up, that there will be folks who want to use it. Is there a way to do some maintenance checks on that playground over there and to see if there's anything that we can be fixing or polishing up before we start to reopen again, including that sandbox?
yes, that's a great question. I actually was there with supervision today, checking out John Jay Playground. And as I said, we are preparing to open we're preparing ourselves to be ready to open the playgrounds at a moment's notice. So there will be some cleaning going on, some detail work going on at John Jay as well as other playgrounds, but specifically at John Jay. As I mentioned, at St. Catherine's, we added some sand as well just before we closed the park. So right around early March, we added sand to St. Catherine's. We also added quite a bit of sand at John Jay as well. So a lot of our sand pits, for lack of a better word, or our sand boxes have had new sand added to them this season. They'll need a little raking, a little cleaning up because there's been some leaves falling since then, and a good quick cleaning of the playground, and we're ready to open them up as soon as City Hall allows us to. I wanted to add, as far as the spray showers, again, it's not going to be my decision, it'll be City Hall. But I do know too that we're also looking at some alternative watering and cooling. Our sprinklers are also considered cooling stations in the summer as well. So there'll be a lot of thought considered to the spray showers. And we've also developed plans, alternate plans as well, in the fact that we may not be able to do that, or if we do. So we're looking at things from a spray shower standpoint from many different angles, but nothing confirmed at this point in time. But we're ready in case we get the word.
My final question, and then I see Lynn. I see that you're raising your hand, so we can get to you too. And Barbara, I know, has raised her hand. But my final question has to do with the Esplanade. And I sent you an email about this. Thank you for sending out a team. But right around about 2 weeks ago, the chains that were separating folks from the FDR to the Esplanade, right at 74th to 75th Street, was broken. It really is broken. It's a broken chain even now, but it's like it was brought down, so you had just people with zero separation between the cars on the FDR Drive and the Esplanade. I know that your team went out there. I know that we go out in the early morning, and I saw that somebody had looped it around each side, so it's now back up. But I just kind of thought that this would be maybe a good opportunity to, instead of using this rusted, broken chain that's being held together by what looks like wire, we could instead start to think about a safer divider between the FDR and the Esplanade there. It seems like a very unsafe point. It's narrow, probably the most narrow there because of the building there, and would just love to, I honestly think I might even feel more safe even if you had those, forgive me, those like very industrial metal dividers that you have up at construction time, just to have those up instead of what's there. But I would just love to know if you guys are thinking about any sort of way that we can make that space a little more safe for the pedestrians and cars for that matter.
Well, yes, that's a good question too. We did, that area is actually the Con Ed building, and that's why they have to have access to that facility. The wall that separates the walk from the highway is maintained by Department of Transportation. So that's actually not Parks Department property. However, you bring up a valid point. There's a chain there. We thought about putting a barricade there, but a barricade could actually be much more dangerous if anybody was to push the barricade into oncoming traffic. Would be not good at all. So my crews brought that to me. That was the first thing I thought about, was putting some metal barricades, but metal barricades around a 45-mile-per-hour highway is not a good option unless they can be anchored or secured. So whatever you put there needs to be secured, and it needs to be something that Con Ed can access their facility with. To be honest, like I say, I mean, that may be something we needed to address to the Department of Transportation, but we put the chain, our crews did put the chain back and try to maintain the safety. When we do get areas damaged like that, we try to caution it off best we can. But the wall is maintained by the Department of Transportation, and we can't put a metal barricade that somebody could bump out into traffic or anything. So.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, thank you.
But if I could just say, I think Trish has raised a very good point, and I think we need to give it some more thought. And that area is supposed to be renovated, in the near future by the Hospital for Sexual Surgery as a community benefit. And I'm going to check to see whether or not we can possibly include some kind of new protection along that fence line as part of that project. Again, as Wes pointed out, it would require, approval probably from both DOT and Con Edison. But you raise a very good point.
Great, thank you so much. Barbara, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna call on Lynn first, just because she's a member of the public. Lynn, sorry, Will, can you unmute Lynn?
I just wanted to ask about the garbage collection up near the promenade and Carl Schurz Park, because I was up there the other day and the garbage can was totally overflowing. So, and with the protests and everything, is more care being taken, to clean that up?
Well, I mean, we didn't gain any additional staff by any means, but we are cleaning the area. And as we have all noticed, with many of our parks and playgrounds being closed, that has put additional pressure on areas that are open. So that is something that our crews are trying to adjust to and react to. And then on top, that is just from the pandemic. And then added upon that, protesting in the area. So even another layer of unexpected park usage and trash cans, as well as NYPD requested a lot of trash cans to be removed, and sanitation has been removing trash cans as well in several locations. So they had concerns of people setting trash cans on fire or anything loose debris that could be used to be thrown. So that has created some issues as well. So many people may not have been aware, but we have removed a lot of trash cans along the East End Avenue of Carl Schurz. And just in general, everything along the Esplanade has been, the patron usage has just been expedited because the very limited space and people are home, and their normal activities as has been for everybody has altered. So they need to get out. They need to get out and exercise. They need to run. They need to enjoy the fresh air, which we encourage, and all of that is fine. But it has increased our maintenance, and we didn't gain any additional staff. But we are cleaning it regularly. We're emptying it. And if you see any issues that appear to not being handled on a regular basis, please let me know. But we do find that some areas are getting used and filled quicker than what we're normally accustomed to.
Great, thank you. Barbara, go ahead.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. I want to comment on two things that Tricia said. First of all, in terms of that Con Ed site, thank you for bringing it up again. I brought it up for years. It is such a scary site, and I've been there when trucks have been going into the building. It used to be, if my memory is correct, that you can go on either side. So the building is sort of in the middle of the Esplanade, and there's this teeny little alley entryway on the FDR side, and there's also was one on the east side, and it's closed now. If that could be open, it would be a way. I would rather have the other one closed to pedestrians than this one open. But Tricia, thank you for bringing it up, because I think you would get something done in all my years of frustration with that one area, the whole Con Ed site. And thank you for bringing it up. So something could be done. I would like to talk about something else. I know I've gotten phone calls too about pools. I don't know if the mayor will make a decision and that will be it. If we have it, I think it's something we really have to consider. I know the pool has chlorine. We hear from the president, if you drink the chlorine, maybe you will be safe, but please, I'm being facetious. But I know that may be safe, but it isn't just the swimming. It is really, I feel it would be a very unsafe area unless we have a vaccine, until we know we're safe. And everything we're hearing is there may be another late summer, fall. You're talking about people waiting online hopefully with kids that are not going to socially be distant, nor parents, going into an old building. And I'm just talking about John Jay. I'll tell you about other places also, to take a communal shower that's not going to be cleaned from one group to another. You'll have to limit the number of people that go, I have to assume, which means the lines will even be longer. And I hope I would vote against it. Unless I hear something different, I think it's asking for trouble. I had a buddy that lived in the South Bronx, and I took him to the pool one time there. It was a beautiful pool, but you only were there 20 minutes. So the idea that you're going to cool kids off, you're cooling them off for 20 minutes. And most of the time, the hour that they're waiting to get in, they're on top of each other and playing around in a way that is just not safe today. I would love pools, I'd love playgrounds, I'd love everything to be over, but we know people are still getting sick. We heard last night from Mark Levine that there's still 500 people a day that become positive, and probably there'll be an uptake. So that's just my point. I hope that we hear it before a decision is made. And unless I hear something different, unless something is said to convince me differently, I would definitely vote no at this point.
Thanks, Barbara.
And that's my comment.
Just to let everybody know, and mostly for the committee members, Barry and I have talked a lot about this, because there have been, over the past few months, a lot of instances where people have asked us to maybe to take up a resolution, whether like calling on the playgrounds to be open or closed, or calling on the pools to be open and closed. We have just generally decided that it's not our place to make a public health decision on this.
Mm-hmm.
We will certainly, so we will wait for the city and for our elected leaders to inform us on the public health situation, but that we are more than happy to look for more transparency and for more information on something. We will try to figure out where our voice is most useful, but we generally will have been trying not to have past resolutions or to push one way or the other when it comes to public health.
Exactly, as someone said, it's above our pay grade.
There's a second issue. There's the public health, and there's also the economic. We like this money. There is the pools that I think will have a minimal amount of joy for people at this terrible time. It isn't like ordinary times, because they'll have to limit the number of people that go in, and therefore, I know when I took Josh to the South Bronx, they were allowed to stay in, I think it was 20 minutes. So we waited online for an hour, and then they were in there for 20 minutes. So, it was a limited time. But it's also, are we willing to say, I want to open up the pools and therefore not have a work program, or not have schools, or not have something else? I know when I do a budget, if I go to the theater, I say I don't do this. And I think we should be responsible also, which I know is hard for us to do, but it's a second issue. The main issue is public health. I think I got very nervous after hearing Mark Levine talk and others talk about this. There's a general feeling there's going to be an upswing with the number of cases, and it scares me. We've worked too hard for this.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara. We have Craig, and then I have another update on parks and parks property. Craig, you have the floor for about 30 seconds.
Oh, that's it? Okay, I'll make it quick. One, I think the thing that we've learned out of this whole coronavirus situation is that the animal person transmission is how it all started, without pretending to be a scientist. So the dogs are my main concern, and it's continually abused. I mean, if I had a kid, I would never ever let him play at John Jay Park. That rule, and there are, by the way, there's two conflicting signs here. One says no dogs are allowed, which is on the southwest corner. It says no pets allowed, and then when you enter the park, it says dogs must be on a leash.
Craig,
So-
let me interrupt you. Tricia and I have talked about this issue regarding parks and dogs and dog runs. There will be a topic of our discussion in our July meeting. So I'd like you to hold your thoughts until July when we convene again, and that will be one of the agenda items to be discussed.
Okay, can I just ask a quick question to Wes, or to the group, I guess? What are the plans? I know John Jay, there was plans to those 4 or 5 pads to make those into flower beds that were exercise areas. Where does that stand?
Well, the work, if I could answer that one, you're talking about the sitting area in the southeast corner, where we had.
I call it the adult exercise area, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, where we had the exercise equipment. That project had been due to begin in May, and of course was sidelined because of the COVID-19 crisis. So I'm waiting right now to find out when that contractor will be able to begin work. It could very well be in the very near future.
I would, as someone who goes there on daily, I would until the gyms are open, I would not recommend doing that. I think that would be a disaster, because every single one of those pads is used for exercise throughout the course of the day. So the gyms are closed, people have nowhere to go exercise, and those are continually used. To close those down would be an enormous mistake.
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind.
I just want to also add to that. Actually, I was just there. We go there in the evenings. I was just there right before this meeting started. There were at least 7 people on those pads working out, but in that area there was probably 50 because there was families at every single picnic table. There were people sitting on every single bench in that spot. It's because the playground is shut, because the playground is closed. That is the second most populated area other than the Esplanade and Central Park. So third most populated area that I know in our district, that little quadrant right there. So if you could just, Steve, let us know. I'm very hesitant to say put pause on any sort of improvement or projects in our area, but I would also think that you're going to have a lot of angry, frustrated people who are going to be just at a loss to lose that space, even though a lot of people knew that it was coming. We would just need to do really good communication about that when that happens.
I have one final comment. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Trish.
That's fine.
Area is inundated with personal trainers. I don't know if they're from Equinox or if they're independent, but my understanding, and maybe I'm incorrect, is that you need a permit. So for people who don't have a place to go exercise.
No, if people are using that equipment and are charging fees,
yes.
That's absolutely not permitted. So I'm going to have somebody check on that.
Yeah, I mean, this is all day, and I've seen Parks Department security or whatever it may be called come there and not do anything.
Yeah, well, they may not have been, they may not have been clued in to look out for it. But and they may not be the appropriate people to do it. So let me look into that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Sure.
Okay, final update on parks. The Tramway Plaza, as you know, has been deactivated by the REOC building the new elevator system. Here's what we've received today. The tram elevator project was deemed an essential construction project during the New York pause. Since our last update, the pile work and foundation work is complete. Electrical and concrete curb work is ongoing. We will begin to install sidewalk shed by mid-June and begin structural steel install. The overall project schedule is affected due to the steel and glass fabrication, COVID-related closures. We will be able to assess impacts once all fabricators are back to work. Tram elevator is 20% complete. Scheduled completion date, March 25th, 2021. It may be extended by 2 months due to COVID-19. And that was from Terrence McNally, REOC. Thank you. Any other, go ahead, please, Tricia, Joel, yours.
Sorry, you have a member of the public who had her hand raised to ask Wes the question, I think. Wendy? Wendy, you'd be able to. You there, Wendy?
Hello?
Yep.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This isn't Wendy. This is Betty Wallerstein.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
I had pressed to speak. I pushed *9, and I don't know if you've seen it, but I would like a chance. I don't know who Wendy is, but after she has spoken, I would like to speak.
Betty, I'm sorry. It said Wendy on the ID that we're seeing, but you have the floor. Go ahead.
No, I'll wait. But I just wanted to make sure.
You are Wendy.
It's your turn.
Okay, okay, all right. No, as you know, John Jay, it's almost 10 years now, did receive funds from Ben Kalos and subsequent funds from Rebecca Seawright. And also, I'm happy to say, we also received a promise of funds for the trees that needed to be replaced, etc., from Mitch Silver. And we were hoping to move, there was a plan to move that last area to make it a place for people to sit down in what is generally not a park, but John Jay is a playground. And there was no place for the seniors who live in that area to come and sit down. They used to be able to sit in the front part as you go in, where the ice cream guy was, and they could sit along the benches. But then the children who were too old to be in the children's playground and not yet ready for the basketball and the other courts were throwing frisbees and were doing things in that horseshoe as you go in. So it became a problem for people to sit there. So about 8 years ago, 2 people approached me who live at City and Suburban, and one from the other buildings, Cherokee, that they really needed a place. It was too far to walk to Carl Schurz. So we had everything planned, a program to have. Also, what was happening was exercise classes that were paid for by East 79th Street neighborhood and by Ben, and that was done. That was going very well. But then things happened, and this did not get underway, and there were a lot of problems with it. I'm not going into it, Barry, but I was very glad to hear. I was wondering if we're going to hear anything about John Jay. And so the person who asked about why one section says no dogs and the other one says dogs on a leash was because that back section was going to be, it started out to be for adults, where there would be, well, we started really with asking about seniors, and then people in the neighborhood said, look, you know, I come home from work, I'm not a senior, and I live in the neighborhood, and I'd like to come over and sit there and read my paper. And we said, of course, it should be for adults. But then it took so long to get this done, and that there was then the feeling from our parks representatives and people that we don't want to be, after a while when nothing was happening, then people were beginning to say, let's not exclude anyone, and let's just have it a quiet place for whoever wants to come in. But we would not have dogs, and we would not have loud music, and we would not have the bikes going through. So what happened to all of that, I don't know. We really have to work on it. But that area where you saw no dogs, that was an early poster. There also was one with no bikes. So that's what that is about. And I do hope that we can get back to really fixing it up and doing what we were supposed to do. I just wanted to explain why it looked like there were different signs and what was happening. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Betty. Rita, you've got the last comment.
I have a point of information question. Rupert Park is really in bad shape, and I don't know how you go about getting money for St. Catherine's, for Sycamore, for Locust, for 72nd Street. I just want to know, what is the procedure to getting money for a park?
Well, if I can take that one, most of the funding for smaller park projects such as these comes from the either the borough president or the council member or a combination thereof. We have been talking to Councilmember Kalos for a number of years and about doing work at Rupert. Borough Commissioner Casher would certainly like to completely remake that park, and we have had discussions with our capital division on what it would take, and the estimates I don't have them handy, but would require a considerable amount of funding, which at this point we have not been able to obtain. But it is absolutely on our wish list of projects and parks we would like to see done.
What do we have to do to speed this up? Because this is now going on for what, 20 years?
Well, I'm not sure where it is on your community board budget priority list, but that would be a start to make sure it's ranked highly on that on the board 8 list. And I would continue to lobby the council member and the borough president, and and then it may take probably.
I have $500 from Kalos. It will get me nothing.
I'm sorry.
I have $500,000 from Kalos. I really want to know the chairs of the park committee. What is their role in getting?
I don't think we have any money at all right now for Rupert Park. I don't know what.
Steve, let me jump. I
don't believe we have the 500,000.
Okay, so what I'll say is that so Rita, if you're saying that we have $500,000 from Ben Kalos, we can certainly follow up with Ben to see if that's something that he's and to confirm that, because Steve's saying that it's not currently in the budget. The way that St. Catherine's Park, as they said, was that it's been put in consecutive years to add up. So I'd want to make sure, I'd want to see if Ben has actually put that money in for Rupert. I promise you, I'm pretty sure that Rupert was number 4 or 5 on our budget priority list, because we've been there and we've said that Rupert Park needs funding for the irrigation and needs to be redesigned to be a better use of that space. We can certainly look into that again. We continue to make sure that our parks, it goes parks, libraries, schools, and one other issue are always our top 4, I think, in terms of the district needs. So we make sure that we list Rupert by name, as well as the Esplanade and some of the other major projects in the spot. Oh, sorry. Will is saying that it was part of the budget priorities, but it was not number 4 last year. But we can still make sure that it's still listed as one of our priorities. And can relay that. But I think that if you're saying that Ben told you that it was $500,000 that he was going to allocate, then we should follow up with Ben to make sure that that actually happens, because we're hearing from the Parks Department that that's not the case right now.
Tricia, let me jump in here. Why don't we go back and take a look at history? How was Andrew Haswell Green Park funded. I'll tell you exactly how it was funded. When this is a long story, I'll try to make it as brief as possible. When the helicopter fell off the heliport into the East River several years ago, probably 1998, it came to our attention, people on the community board, Judy and myself, among others, that now's a perfect time for the community board to get together and do a 197A plan to tell the city how it wants the public, how it wants its parks or its public area should develop, city area developed. And so over time, we came up with the idea of having a park at that location. And we engaged the enthusiasm and dollars of Carolyn Maloney, of the borough president, of the city council members, of the state assembly members, of the state senator. We pulled all that money together. We had $5 or $6 million at the time. And Andrew Haswell Green, over a long period of time, it's still in progress, was conceived and developed. I bet, I'm sure, I know this, I've told the story to any number of people. I met with Dan Court at Rupert Park back on, it's my park day back in October of last year. And we talked about, I said, this park needs help. It needs to be redone. He said, you're right, Barry. I think I've got some money for you. So I turned that over to some other folks. And right now, what you need is an organization who can put together a drive to create a funding for the redoing of Rupert Park. You need someone to sit down and say, all right, these are the plans we're going to execute. We're going to go after the council member. We're going to have the city council. We're going to go after the borough president, up to and including the congresswoman, and get funding to make this park the jewel that it should be, and that has been neglected all these many years.
Well, my question was, in other words, you're saying that I or other people have to go around and find the money. I was just wondering what the role of the chairs of the Parks Department, of the Parks Committee was in finding money. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't know how to go around with my hat in my hand at my age to, who do I go to for money, and why is it my responsibility when we have a Parks Committee?
I'm not suggesting it's your responsibility. Maybe the Parks Committee at our July meeting can sit down and discuss how do we create the drive to fund a rehabilitation, complete redo of the park.
I actually, Barry, if I can jump in, I think that the better way to do this is maybe we should invite Ben Kalos to the next meeting and see if Ben can come to the next meeting and discuss with us too, since he's our representative and since he's obviously generously given money to St. Catherine's and to other projects. I think it might be good to see if we can invite Ben to come.
That's an excellent idea, Tricia. I'm in accord. Let's put it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. I know that it's getting late, but I don't want to stop moving. Go ahead.
Hi, Tricia. Thank you, Rita and Barry, for bringing up that point. First, thank you for this session. It was very helpful. I have a quick question first for Wes before I pose my question about Rupert Park. Wes, is there any understanding yet whether the playgrounds and the parks are going to open in July? The last understanding we had was that we're closed till June 30th.
No, not currently at this time. We don't have any dates set. As I mentioned earlier, it's really going to be up to City Hall on that decision. All I can tell you is that we are actively preparing to open for it. So if we get the word, we're ready to open it up immediately. As far as as far as events go, we've closed everything through June 30th. Right. So where we'll be after that, I mean, it could change from day to day, but currently we don't have any new updates. It's until further notice and a decision by City Hall.
Okay. I just wanted to add to the conversation that just transpired. Really was I really echo what Rita and Barry are saying. One of the things we have proposed to in New York City parks, as well as to Ben Kellis many times. And I think it's time that this conversation has happened so many times, right? We have seen so many reiterations of the same question about how we can actually do a long-term sustainable improvement in Rupert Park. I mean, Muslim Volunteers comes and we do try to at least make sure that the short-term needs of the park are at least addressed in terms of cleanliness, planting, landscaping, but we need a more sustainable plan. It would really make sense for, rather than Ben having a meeting with, let's say, Group A, or the commissioner having a meeting with Group B, that all of us involved in this sit down together at the table and actually have a discussion that can lead to some sustainable, actionable items. I mean, we've had this rhetoric going on for a very long time, but I think it would make a lot of sense if, CB8 is there and Ben is there and New York City Parks is there and PFP is there, but I think we need to get the people involved in this conversation together to see what steps, even if there are small steps, that we can take next to get this conversation moving in an action-oriented manner.
Sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Mubin. So I am literally drafting an email to Ben's people right now, making sure that we can secure him for the next meeting, July. We have said that in light of a lot of recent occurrences about talking about rules in parks and following rules in parks, we've already said that we're going to have a conversation about how rules are enforced, particularly in Central Park, and how we can better get people to follow what's the established rules that are in place. But we'll talk about all rules, as Barry said before, certainly about the dogs and about those types of issues. And so we'll have a conversation about that. We'll also have a conversation, hopefully with Ben Kalos, and like I said, I'm drafting an email right now to him, asking him to come to the next meeting to talk about sustained funding and ways to really secure big dollars for our parks that need it for the future.
Good.
Great.
Before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I do want to say the minutes will reflect that we were joined for a long period of time during this webinar, that we had Sarah Solomon joining us. Sarah was a member of Community Board until she went off to college. And I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to say hello, hi in person, or at least virtually, but the minutes shall reflect that.
Barry, could I have 25 seconds?
Make it 30.
Okay, I do want to report that the reconstruction of the playground at Carlshires Park resumed yesterday. And, it was originally scheduled to be completed in September. At this point, it probably will be delayed maybe 2 or 3 months. But when work stopped a couple of months ago, it was at the 46% stage, but work has now resumed.
On that happy note,
Barry, you have.
I see Meredith has her hand raised. Meredith. Have a happy note, Meredith.
Thank you. I just wanted to really briefly let everybody here know, I think some of you already know, Trisha, I saw you had RSVP'd. We're having our annual meeting for Friends of the East River Esplanade on Monday. And I just wanted to invite all of you to attend. And if you would like to attend, please shoot me an email and I'll send you the Zoom link. My email address is Meredith, MEREDITH @esplanadefriends.org. MEREDITH @esplanadefriends.org, and I'll provide the Zoom link to you. We would love to see as many CB8 Parks members, as well as just Parks aficionados, Parks employees at our annual meeting, so we can talk about some of the things that we've done over the past year and kind of what our plans look like going forward. I also just wanted to thank all of you for your efforts in, everything that's been going on in the Esplanade. As Trisha mentioned, it's been very widely used during the pandemic. We're glad that people have had access to it. We remain a little concerned about the social distancing that occurs there. And Wes, I had mentioned to you, I know Jennifer and I had talked a little bit about people's concerns about just the structural integrity of certain areas of the Esplanade in light of all the increased usage, and just making sure that folks from engineering are paying it close attention. We don't want any repeats of, pieces of the Esplanade falling into the East River, and that just remains a concern of ours. So I just wanted to make sure that it's on Parks' agenda to kind of keep close tabs on those areas that have the sinkholes and some of the other areas that have some weak points, just given all of this additional traffic that has been occurring.
Great. Thank you so much, Meredith. Is there a motion to adjourn?
What is the date of your next meeting?
We don't know.
Great question.
Now, we had scheduled our meetings to be the second Thursday. There was a conflict with a meeting held by the community board that seemed to, but in any event, we will let you know. We'll check with the powers that be, and the word will go out as early as we have it.
Okay, very good.
And the Esplanade meeting is on Monday, this upcoming Monday at 6:30. And Meredith's email is in the chat.
And tentatively, Steve, it's the 9th of July.
Oh, okay.
And if current plans go correctly with the other meetings that bumped this one, they're no longer going to be on that date. So
Very good. Thank you, Will. Thank. I didn't want to
Okay.
say that, but I assumed that was a fact.
Okay.
Well,
Barry,
I'll go down with the ship.
Okay, Barry and Tricia, I would also ask that you hold off if you were thinking of circulating our PowerPoint presentation on St. Catherine's. I want to send you a slightly corrected version tomorrow.
That'll be fine. Thank you very much, Steve. On that is a happy note. On that happy note, I say adieu. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay well. We'll see you soon. Good night.
Okay, bye.